Next month, Zoe Kiros will become a bat mitzvah. And in her bat mitzvah handout program is this sentence: the Jew is supposed to live a life based on our people's understanding of what God wants from us. How do we understand what it is God wants from us? This morning, I'd like to propose that we are to learn what God wants from us from 4 pivotal questions that God asks in the book of Genesis. Now, lest we be dismissive of Genesis as stories for children or lament that God is unknowable, these 4 pivotal questions prove that God has very clear aspirations for us. And my hunch is that you are absolutely familiar with all 4 of these questions. God's first question to humanity is one word: Ayecha. Where are you? This is not a GPS question. God knows exactly where Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, but they have just defied God's prohibition not to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Ayecha, where are you, is an ethical question. Is this the kind of person you want to be? The kind of character you want to cultivate? Why are you being deceptive, self-justifying, fearful, worried about consequences for wrong actions? That is what Ayecha means. And God's first question is also a spiritual question. Ayecha, where are you in relationship to me? I implanted a soul within you so that you would find my presence when you search your conscience. Are you going to find me, or are you going to ignore me? Adam answers Ayecha with, where am I? I hid because I was afraid. God seems to say to Adam and Eve and to us, come out from where you are hiding. In hiding from me, you are really hiding from yourself. Live in my presence. Live fully present to yourself. God's first question to humanity is God's first question to us each and every day. Ayecha, where are you? It is a call to be present in our lives, not just to be managing and juggling our days and our obligations. Where are you means, can you stop longer than you think is comfortable to find me in your inner life, to actually listen and consider if today you are succeeding in living an authentic relationship with others and the world around you. The authentic response to Ayecha is Hineni, here I am, ready to look honestly at my words and my deeds. This is a spiritual check-in of a different proportion. Where have you hidden or buried your authentic self? The high goals that you set for the person that you want to be. Can you still hear the still small voice? Have you blocked your ears to the pain or needs of others? Have you let the work and the clutter, the craziness and distraction of life pile up so as to avoid hearing God's question? Hineni is the answer that says, I am present. I am brave enough to live an examined life. Hineni has been the answer of our people for centuries. Hineni sang the cantor last evening on Rosh Hashanah. Here I am, so poor in deeds, I tremble in fear. Hineni, says Abraham, I am fully present, God. Tell me what to do so that I don't slaughter Isaac. Hineni, says Moses, here I am. I don't know how to lead these people. Help me figure it out. Hineni, we can say, spiritually present in this moment, ready to live in relationship with you, ready to be present with myself. God's second question, you know this one too. It seems deceptively small after the expansive ayecha. Did you eat from the tree? God knows exactly what Adam has done. Of course, he has eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because he knows that he is naked and he knows that he lied about it. Did you eat from the tree? Is a question about honesty and integrity. Adam shows neither, immediately blaming the woman, who immediately blames the serpent. Rabbi Harold Kushner writes in the Eitz Chaim commentary, uncomfortable with their guilt and uncertain what will happen if they accept responsibility, Adam and Eve seek to blame everyone but themselves. Here is what God wants from us, to live with honesty and integrity. God gives Adam the chance to be honest with his actions. Did you eat? But Adam deflects the question. Not only has he done what he should not have done, but his answer has no integrity. She made me eat. Avira gereret avira, we read in Talmud Pirkei Avot. One transgression so easily leads to the next. To be human is to put honesty as the highest value. Strive to live a life of integrity. Let your words and your deeds show you are incorruptible. This is a core message of what God wants from us. In August of 2021, these words from a deposition of Dr. Richard Sackler, a former president and co-chairman of the board of directors of Purdue Pharma, the prescription manufacturer of the opioid OxyContin, responding to a lawyer's questions. Do you have any responsibility for the opioid crisis in the United States? No, Dr. Sackler, 76, replies. Does the Sackler family have any responsibility for the opioid crisis in the United States? Again, no. Does Purdue Pharma have any responsibility for the opioid crisis in the United States? More firmly, no. The CDC's National Center for Health Statistics estimated that overdose deaths from opioids increased to 75,673 in the 12-month period ending 3 months before this deposition. And that was up from 56,000 the year before. Live a life of honesty and integrity. Question number 3 comes in the story of Abel and Cain. Sadly, it seems that the struggle between human beings will always be a part of human nature. Cain is jealous that his brother's offering to God is met with more divine favor than his own offering. And God says, "Why are you distressed and your face fallen? Surely if you do right, there will be uplift. But if you do not do right, Sin couches at the door, its urge to you, but you can be its master. God tries to advise Cain that if you act honorably and you do your best, you will be lifted up. The warning is clear that living in competition with others or feeling wronged by others will surely lead to sinful behavior. When God asks Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" the question, like Ayecha and "Did you eat the fruit?" is one which God already knows the answer to. God does not ask to get answers. God is asking these questions so we know that we are responsible. Cain replies, "Am I my brother's keeper? Hashomer achi anochi?" Rabbi Harold Kushner writes, "For Judaism, the answer to Cain's question is an unequivocal yes. Where is your brother Abel? Is God's question to us to let us know that we have a responsibility for the well-being of others. In our own day, do we walk the walk of being our brother's shomer after we talk the talk? Last March, I visited a respite shelter for asylum seekers staffed by the Jewish Family Services of San Diego. This was an unmarked building in an industrial area. Having worked hard to cultivate a working relationship with the Border Patrol, ICE, Homeland Security, and local agencies, the Jewish Family Services in San Diego was living by the motto, "No one stands alone in our community." In the midst of COVID, San Diego's rapid response network had placed refugees in hundreds of hotel rooms across the city, not in one particular shelter. As I stood there, a group of migrants disembarked from a bus into the center. They would be flying out that night, and they were at the transit center to rest before being taken to the airport. Most of the refugees in the last 6 months were Russian. The group that I saw were Ukrainian. A colleague who spoke Ukrainian determined the refugee that he was speaking to, had taken 8 flights to arrive in San Diego. These asylum seekers are in the United States lawfully to exercise their legal right to seek protection from their home countries. More than 60,000 people had passed through this network in the last 4 years, receiving food and shelter, transportation, and assistance to get to family elsewhere. With extraordinary coalition building and endeavor, volunteers arrived to run the respite shelter. They would escort families through the airport, navigating security lines, boarding passes, and plane delays to finally put them on their flights. They would accompany people who were in need of medical help. Volunteers would pack food packages to accompany them as they traveled. 2 years ago, the volunteers protested the use of ankle monitors on asylum seekers, which needed to be charged regularly. Said Rabbi Devorah Marcus, people were being sent to cold climates and we couldn't bring them boots because they wouldn't fit over the ankle monitors. Sadly, the shelter has had to move locations 8 times because San Diego is also home to an active white supremacist movement who would track them down and show up at the shelter brandishing guns to intimidate them. Where is your brother? God asks. She has left behind possessions and people to come to a new country, to start a new life where she can be safe at last. God's first questions to humanity Teach us that God is calling us to be present, to be honest and live with integrity, and to be responsible for each other. But the fourth question is perhaps the most haunting of all. In response to Cain slaying Abel, God asks, "What have you done?" Undergirding all of these stories from Genesis is this truth: we are created with free will. Placed in this earthly garden, we possess souls and brains. What will we choose to do? Our words and actions will impact the course of the future. Will we continue to live in paradise, or will we compromise and degrade paradise? This is a question that God does not already know the answer to. What have you done means we will be accountable for our deeds. I am horrified, absolutely devastated by what I did, said Robert Palmer of Florida upon sentencing for his part in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Convicted of throwing a plank and a fire extinguisher at police officers, he said, "I'm really, really ashamed of what I have done." The tree of knowledge of good and evil is available to each one of us. We are given free will in the hope that we will choose to transform that knowledge into wisdom. The potential for our free will to lead to goodness is extraordinary. But the choice of evil is also imaginable because we see it around us every day. Our challenge is to marry free will to maturity and to self-restraint, to harness the ego and the desire for power. But here's the thing. God's question of "what have you done?" while condemnatory to Cain, can also be a question that motivates us to leverage our free will to do good in the world. In her book, The Choice, Holocaust survivor and psychologist Edith Eva Eger writes, "Suffering is universal, but victimhood is optional. We become victims not because of what happens to us, but when we choose to hold on to our victimization." On the day of judgment, when Edith Eva Eggers is asked, "What have you done?" she can answer that she dedicated her life to the treatment of PTSD and resiliency training for soldiers and for civilians through a lifetime career. We get to choose how we will show up in the world. And what better day to make that choice than Rosh Hashanah as we begin anew? Ayecha, where are you? As you consider your work life and your home life, your most personal relationships and your casual interactions, the way you present yourself in the social and political world that swirls about us, how will you answer God's questions about living a life of authenticity, of honesty, of responsibility, and accountability? Good Yontif.